Hey everybody, it's Christopher Dixieland Farm, and it's been a while since I made a vinyl or music video, and one of the videos I did was why John Kale is better than Lou Reed, right? But that doesn't mean that Lou Reed isn't good. He's great. Of course he's great. He's in the Velvet Underground. Made the Velvet Underground, right? It's just that I found John Kale to be more subtle and more of a songs craftsman, but Lou Reed, more of a from the gut, right? That's why we like Lou Reed. I had Lou Reed, book of his lyrics, it was like a poetry book. When you read his lyrics, you're like, these aren't, it's not that they aren't good, they are, but they're very direct. Simplistic. He talks about a lot of subjects that nobody talked about in plain language. And, that's why he's Lou Reed. But he's not Bob Dylan. He's not clever. He's very direct, which is good. But I think that also might be not my issue, but that's why in the ranking, because I can't forgive off of his biggest hit, Walk on the Wild Side, which is on Transformer, which I don't have on vinyl because I had the CD version, so why would I need the vinyl version? Because half the songs are Velvet Underground loaded outtakes. So while people love this album, and I love this album, Bowie's production on it is a little, it robs it to me, and why I prefer the outtakes from Loaded where they're more raw. But, back to what I was saying. The thing I can't forgive is rhyming head with head. There could have been, there were so many other choices. It's not clever. It's not poetic. So I guess that's my, you want to boil it down, that's what my issue is. Rhyming head with head. First time I probably heard Lou Reed, I'm not sure, was probably this album, Lou Reed, New York, released in the, I think, late 80s, 89 it says here. And then from Lou Reed, I had the book on CDs you should buy. It was a kind of a thin book made by a rock journalist. And that's where I picked up, Lou Reed was in the Velvet Underground, and that's started by Velvet Underground Journey and all that. But Romeo and Juliet, when that song came out, I was a teenage boy, and I'm like, I've never heard anything like this at all. This CD, by the way, has CD graphics. It says it right there. Can you see it says CD graphics? So they embedded, you had to have a special player, and the lyrics would print out on a TV screen. But like Nintendo quality. It wasn't like a JPEG or something like that. They didn't have that back then. So it looked like a Nintendo version of the lyrics to a Lou Reed song with like a street background drawn out with like a rough trade hustler. Just sure. Weird. There's only a handful of these CD graphics I think that were made. This is a fantastic album. He had a renaissance in the late 80s, early 90s, which renewed interest, the Velvet Underground being released on CD. That's where a lot of people heard it, being name dropped by a lot of bands, right? Even forming a reunion, which was done partially on this album. John Kale, Songs for Joe, so Andy Warhol died. Reed owing a lot to the beginning of Velvet Underground to Warhol, and his name attached to the band, even though he didn't really do much. The Plastic Exploding Inevitable, he certainly did that. So getting the beginning hype going. So after Andy died, John Kale and Reed came together for this performance piece. Music, you'll never be able to see this on the CD. On a vinyl version, you probably can. It's black on black, and there it is. You can kind of just see it. See, there's Andy black on black, just like the black on black with White Light, White Heat from Velvet Underground. And there's a skull tattoo. So anyway, this captures the spirit of Andy. John Cale and Lou said, oh, maybe we can work together. Kind of did a reunion tour of the Velvet Underground, Europe. I don't know, lasted maybe 10 or 15 dates, and it all fell apart, and they never came to America. What a shame. And then Magic and Lost. This is, so a lot of people started dying of AIDS and cancer in his life, and this is a song cycle. You can't call it really a concept album, but it's definitely about death. And this, along with the Eels' Electroshock Blues, is two of the greatest albums about death and the feelings and emotions and spiritually what happens to you. Both tremendous albums. This is a tremendous album. And this is where, for me, Lou stops. Everything else after this is spotty. There might be a standout track here and there, but not really. Going backwards, I don't have Lou's first album, which has a lot of members of Yes playing on it. Same reason, they were recycled songs from the Velvet Underground, from the Lost 1969 album. I'd rather just listen to that. And those came out in various forms on the VU and Another View outtake CDs at the same time. So listening to the raw versions from the late 60s, almost demos, to me was a better experience. I don't think, I must have heard it once, but I never got it. And it was not rare, but it wasn't easily found. So I didn't want to spend money on something that was a inferior product. Not an inferior product, and this I had on CD. The CD version from the RCA original CD is one of like the most audiophile CDs I have. Or had at the time, but this is Berlin, Lou Reed's Berlin. This is a concept album, definitely a concept album. It's got a booklet in here that kind of explains the story away. I'm gonna pull it out because it's just beautiful. These lyrics tell the story of heroin users and eventually spousal abuse and not child abuse, but the child's taken away by protective services, and there may be incarceration or two, or suicide, or this is such a great album. Produced by Bob Ezrin, who produced The Wall, so it's got that epic, grandiose sound. It's really cinematic. It's definitely cinematic. This is just a tremendous album from the 70s that was overlooked for decades. It finally got its due after the 2000s. This broke Lou's heart that this was not a big album. So Bob Ezrin, besides producing The Wall, also produced Kiss. So I don't really know Kiss very well on those albums. So I don't know if Bob Ezrin also did that kind of production, or is it just The Wall and this. But yeah, so this definitely broke his heart. So he turned it around again and released this, Rock and Roll Animal. Everyone considers this one of the greatest rock and roll live albums ever. I don't like it. I'm one of the few people who don't like it. Gratuitous crotch shot again. There is it's not queer baiting in this, but I don't know. Some of Lou's stuff from this period is meant to shock. So there's definitely some racial things. There's definitely some sexual and gender identity things going on here. But he also lived it. So it may be shocking to somebody who's never been exposed to that. If you're a younger person and come to this, you will not be in the context of how the 70s were, where they shock and provocation was just something you did, and there was no, you just threw it all out there, and now you'd be like, that is insensitive and wrong. But that's just not the way they thought at the time. They thought, I don't know what they thought, to be honest with you, but they didn't think that. And here's like a follow-up version with a different band. Tried to catch lightning in the bottle again, failed. This is an okay album. Did it say how much I paid for this? No, but I paid 99 cents for this one. I think I paid $10 for Berlin. I don't have Sally Can't Dance, but I do have Coney Island Baby. This is Sally Can't Dance I never bought because I heard it was a terrible album. This is a very good album. This is a very good album. Now, every Lou Reed album's got a clunker or two, and some have more than others. Some will either say this is all clunker or all genius. He's got the specifications here of the equipment used, but basically, the controversy, if you don't know, on Metal Machine music is it's just noise. So people would say this is the birth of industrial music. He just tuned up a guitar to all the same string and put them in front of an amp, and what came out, and then kind of diced up the tape. So it's just noise. But in that noise, because the guitar is tuned, there is some melodic elements to it. This is released on the Red label, the classical label. Some say he did this as just a big F you to his record company and he wanted out of his contract. And other people said, no, he's dead serious. And Lou is very cagey with the interviews. Certainly during this period, he never suffered fools. He was very combative. I got to see Lou Reed in person like a concert, but I also saw him like in person. Hey, there's Lou Reed. Hi. He's like 10 feet away from me. And the time I saw him 10 feet away from me, he put out an energy of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. So, yeah. Who's to tell? But I think as time goes on, I think he was serious, and it was heartbreaking that this was not accepted, this masterpiece. And also I think he was trying to prove that he could do John Cale, since John Cale came from that background, did similar things with microphones swinging over amplifiers in a hall and making feedback noise, all feedback noise. The liner notes on this is almost worth the purchase. This was very hard to find for so many years. I bought it in the 90s for 20 bucks. I don't know what it sells for now. A lot, an original. Because people returned it, and back then you could return records and get your money back. So most people returned this. Metal Machine music. 2-record set, and the last side of the record has a locked groove, so it never ends. And one time I listened to the whole thing on headphones, and I didn't realize it. So I extended my playing time by like an extra 20 minutes. I'm like, wait a minute. This has been going on for a long time. And then I realized it was stuck in the groove. Yeah. So he goes away, gets a new contract, and comes out with Street Hassle. Street Hassle is fantastic. Has a string quartet in it on the magic of the album, Street Hassle. Also has a spoken word interlude by Bruce Springsteen. I don't think this is one of his... Oh, it is one of his stereo binaural system. So he was playing around with the idea of not quad, but binaural sound. So they take a dummy head with sculpted ears, human sculpted ears, with microphones in them. So when you listen on headphones, you can hear the sound. And I've actually done this. I've actually made, also somewhere around the early 2000s, these little microphones that I jammed in my ears. And everything sounds exactly the same when you listen back as if you were there. So there's a lot of demos of like people cutting hair and stuff like that. And it's eerie. It's an eerie thing. And this album is recorded with that stereo binaural system. So put on headphones if you've got this. And like I said, the Street Hassle is the longest piece. I think it's like 15 minutes, and it is just amazing. And then there is the problematic I Want to Be Black. Again, provocation for provocation's sake. Oh yeah, this is a stereo binaural recording. Look at that. Yeah. So, then we got Lou Reed's stand-up live comedy album here, Take No Prisoners. So this is him at the, I think the bottom, the bottom line. This was recorded in the late 70s, 78. Also it says binaural recording. It's not, it's a studio feed, but the crowd is in the binaural sound. There is like a 15-minute version of Walk on the Wild Side where he barely sings a song and just talks about the impetus of Walk on the Wild Side. So he's combative to mostly talking about journalists and critics on this. It's him with his laundry list of complaints about critics and New Yorkers and people and his fans, and you know, contempt for his fans at some points. Fantastic. This live album I love this live album, and the cover definitely gives you the mood of what he's going for. So around this time he used to fake shooting up heroin, where he would take the microphone cord, and maybe he wasn't faking it, but nah, he's faking it. Again, the provocative nonsense Persistent Ray Enterprises, so harken back to the Velvet Underground days. This is what people call his disco album. It's got some disco, and look, it's a promo copy if you cared about that. Because disco mystic, stupid man. The Bells is a good song. That's a kind of a longer, epic, moody song. This is an okay album, and Niles Lofgren wrote some of the stuff on here. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so Don Cherry plays on this. I mean, there's some synth stuff. It's weird. It's cut out. People didn't like this. Then he had some albums I actually got rid of. I didn't like. I had Growing Up in Public. That's a terrible album. Mistrial's a terrible album. New Sensations, he's trying to get into the 80s and figure out where he fits. Same thing with the Rock and Roll Heart here is okay. Apparently he was 2.75 pounds. But I bought it for $10.98 somewhere in Manhattan, I'm guessing. The 80s, he doesn't know where he fits anymore. And apparently this is a Spanish copy. And never played? Sure. Made in Spain. No, it's 1970. Yes. Oh yeah, I'm dead wrong. It says 78. So I guess right around the same time as this came out first, huh? So there you go. Strike that, reverse it. I remember this being okay, but the Blue Mask, everyone says, oh, this is Lou coming back to form. I guess because he's copying the same thing as Transformer. You thought Bowie did it first, but the next day, and whatever that album is, no. So Lou did it first. It's okay. It's okay, but I don't love it. That's the end of my Lou Reed collection, everybody. What do you think? Did I ramble long enough? Did I give you a feel of my opinions? Because if you don't know what this stuff sounds like, it's not going to really impress you. Because you either know Lou Reed or you don't, especially if you're watching a vinyl community video here. I've rambled long enough. I've shown you enough. Hey, everybody, take care.